First of all, how's everyone doing? All good? Good day? Perfect, perfect. Well, I know it's getting towards the end of the day now, but we've got a really exciting panel coming up, which is obviously looking at the commercial viability of physical esports venues. We've got a really incredible spread of panelists that I think are going to bring a lot to the table of this conversation, all from very unique backgrounds compared to one another, so should be a really great panel. Before I pass you over to our panelists, I just want to introduce myself. So my name is Rory. I work for a gaming communications consultancy called The Story Mob. It was set up by Anna Rosman-Docic and Nicola Piggott, who were respectively held down major comms roles at ESL, and Riot Games, respectively. And now they've gone on to create their own comms agency and brought in already, despite being still in our infancy, some of the biggest kind of esports brands in the business. So yeah, I will pass over now to each of our panelists, maybe starting with you, Michelle, just to talk to a little about yourself and your role.
Thanks, Rory. Delighted to be here, and thanks to ESI for having us. So my name's Michelle Tierney. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer over at Guild Esports. We have been in existence for just about a year and a half, and I was there at the beginning from last July. Previous to that, my experience was really in traditional sports. So I spent a very long time in football. First of all, Arsenal Football Club for a very, very many of years. And then moved on to player commercialization around their audience and helping them understand their value passed on the pitch. And then my time here at Guild Esports has kind of evolved very, very quickly. And I'm now helping kind of set up our commercial infrastructure around the many products in addition to our esports that we have to make sure that we are a big contender in this amazing space. Thanks.
Hello, testing. All right, we're good. Hello, my name is Mejerwall, and I am here to bring back female esports. But I'll start at the beginning. I started playing Counter-Strike in 2001, and I became involved in Femina Gaming in 2003. And we were the world's biggest community for female esports, really. We had a news site, we had online leagues and ladders, and we had LAN finals at DreamHack. So I've also been a tournament organizer for many, many years at a couple of the biggest venues. Then in 2010, I decided to put esports on half speed, and I've actually been a game developer for a couple of major companies like Capcom and Warner Brothers and IDOS, where I've then been at big gaming festivals like Gamescom, E3, Tokyo Game Show to exhibit there and kind of meet players to play the games. And then I've also done esport on the side, organized tournaments at Meltdown Esports Bar and a couple of smaller venues as well. And now I'm actually back to rebuild Femina United and our game community from the ground up, full with partners and leagues and ladders and community and a safe space, and hoping to build something that lasts.
Thanks. Hello everyone, my name is Rhys Courtney. I'm a senior principal at Populous. Populous specialise in architecture and design of sports and entertainment facilities. So our company was started about 35 years ago, working in traditional sports, so things that you might know, Arsenal Stadium was one of ours, Tottenham quite recently, and obviously Wembley that's behind us. We started getting into the esports market probably about 5 years ago, working with Fortress Melbourne and also Arlington Esports Stadium over in the States. But recently working with Philadelphia Fusion, Overwatch team, and a lot of work now in the Middle East and the UK, which has been keeping us busy. So yeah, that's us. Thank you.
All right. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Matthijs. I'm the founder and CCO of H20 Esports Campus. I have a background in, I always call it traditional sports. I was a professional athlete in Spain for 10 years in the game handball. But I think in England nobody knows that game. It's it's the third sport in Spain after football and basketball. And together with my former teammate of the Dutch national team, we invented 5 years ago the H20 campus, which is well, later on we talk about it more. We do talent development for the industry, but also to become a professional esports player. And yeah, we we created an ecosystem for young kids until adults to develop themselves. And well, here I'm very lucky to be. So and in this great panel. So thanks for attending.
There we are. Yeah, as you say, like really great spread of panelists, and I know we're obviously here to talk about the kind of commercial viability, but actually what I wanted to do to begin with is just bring it right back and actually have a look at the landscape so everyone's kind of on the same page. So actually, Rhys, I was going to start with you, obviously is your role. You have a very unique insight into kind of the global network of Populous and the landscape, and I wondered if you could just briefly kind of talk to us about what the global esports venue landscape looks like at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it is going crazy at the moment. We're seeing growth across the globe. Definitely seeing markets emerging, especially in the Middle East, is one of our biggest sectors at the moment as they start to develop and come online with people like the Americas, for instance. Americas is obviously very strong. We're seeing lots of different, I suppose, people come on that are, you know, either investors, teams, or even government clients that we're starting to see. I think, you know, as I said before, markets such as the UK, for instance, is really starting to emerge, not only in the idea around retrofitting venues, but we're starting to see venues being bespoke for esports, and I think that's a really exciting, almost game changer for the industry. That we're seeing things come out of being in movie theatres or you know, retrofitting into the back of, you know, arenas that aren't fit for purpose to being all about the kind of venue being esports led with other functions being put into that.
Amazing, and you actually answered my follow-up question there, which was going to be what
then,
emerging markets are coming out of that. So, but thank you for kind of giving us a lowdown there. What about just as a follow-up there? What about just Europe generally? How is that a market emerging? Any kind of themes there or trends?
Look, I think, you know, Scandinavia and Germany have always been our you know, where we're getting the most amount of interest. But we are seeing France, Spain and the UK really coming online as the market starts to evolve. It's always been here, you know, it's not a new thing in terms of venue design, but we're really seeing a sort of, as I said before, a change in the way in which people are approaching it. They're taking it a lot more seriously, they're a lot more professional, and they know what they want. And I think that's the biggest thing, that they're not taking venues that are being made for other purposes. They're really demanding, you know, this is the clients I'm talking about here, demanding that that venues are bespoke for esports.
Perfect. Michelle, obviously during your role at Guild, I suppose what would be great to know is kind of what you're looking for when you go and partner with an esports venue. What's kind of the considerations, what's the criteria for your team?
Yeah, there's a couple of examples I can think of, and our main requirement today, because we was actually born in the COVID era, has really been around bringing our players together to boot camp and to train. And we have very limited time with our talent, and obviously we need to have quite a robust program for them. But also, this is a kind of one-stop shop where we need to activate with them. We might need to do some media with them. We might need to kind of bring some of our community also down into the space and have some kind of experience. So flexibility that goes past just the kind of training element to it is really beneficial, especially from an org perspective. Because if you can have that all-encompassing there, then we don't have to, our time is used a lot better, our players get the most out of their training schedules, but also we can absolutely kind of maximize the content output, which is always quite demanding for when we get our players together. So that's a really key factor, and I think more spaces are leaning to that now, whether that's content production facilities, whether that's also some experiential that's been built in-house as well from a VR perspective as well. But then from a kind of a more broader, what we're looking for when we're starting to host some bigger tournaments now, and again, it's what can our audience benefit from that space. So not in addition to what the team is also going to get out of it and what type of standard of facility, but how can we make the moments of our community that come down memorable, something that they kind of build an affinity to, because that also helps if you have a physical space, build that affinity and become a bit of a destination as well. So they're kind of important considerations for us, and we're lucky that actually every week it feels like there's better and better facilities out there that we have to choose from until we have our own.
Yeah, amazing. And one thing you touched on there was kind of bringing your teams together, and I suppose that human connection. I think sometimes there's this philosophy in esports, or this belief that it's very much digital first. Why is then the human connection for teams generally, but as well Guild, why is that so important to you guys?
Yeah, I think, we have to remember that, yes, a digital community is very, very powerful, but that in-person, in real life experience, we're all humans to humans love connection. So that adds an extra value add to what the experience is that you've just created, whether that's for our players and giving them access to a wider network of kind of coaches and infrastructure around them, whether it's them getting used to being in situations that they might not have been in before from a PR perspective, but also making sure that we're entertaining as well with and the wider digital community, so the people that aren't lucky enough to maybe be in that physical environment can actually aspire to want to get there. And how do they then take part in your activation so that they can be rewarded with something like that in the future? Because you can't put a price on face-to-face communication.
100%.
Yeah, and in these times after COVID, it's still going around, but we see that even more they want a physical experience. So before it was already very important, but after these 2 years, people are dying to get to come together, as we see today here. But in every event we organize now, it's packed. That's because people need each other.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. And Matthijs, I suppose if we could just stay with you, you obviously got one of the biggest esports facilities, if not the biggest esports facility in Europe.
The biggest permanent esports.
There we go. There we go. Got that line right. So I just wanted to get a viewpoint of what's going on in-house at these esports venues. Really, like how are you growing the whole ecosystem, let alone just the professional side of it?
Yeah, for us it was very important not to have just a venue. We talk about esports venues, but we prefer to talk about ecosystem. So we want to improve everybody or develop everybody from a young age. So very important part of our concept is education. Like 35% of the people inside our venue have to be educated in a program. And this starts with 7-year-old kids. Kindergarten, and they develop robots, and they start playing games, but on their level. Always very healthy, of course. They need a certain time max that they can play games, and then we have digital sports as well with VR or with like a big Wii, this console, and then up till middle school, high school, and university we have in our facility. So it's not only to become a better player or a better gamer, but also to become a better student or to be prepared to join the workforce.
Amazing. And I suppose you talked obviously there about education and really the grassroots of esports. Is there anything else you guys kind of offer, from hotels or maybe restaurants, anything else that you're looking to create and bring into your facilities to make them more commercially viable? Yeah,
of course. We believe just an esports event venue is not enough. And moreover, during COVID, it was like, we had the best time of starting our facility. We created it 5 years ago. We developed the business plan and the construction for about 3 years. And then, 2 weeks before COVID first lockdown came, we opened up. So it was very nice. And now, we noticed through the ecosystem that even during lockdowns we have a viable system because the young kids could go to school. We had streaming facilities, so there were a lot of different revenue models in our ecosystem. And we talked a lot with ecosystem specialists around the world. Yeah, that's a job as well if you are interested. But that's the most sustainable throughout throughout all times, even in crisis. We noticed that the variety of what we offer, it's interesting. And well, we have a sleepover, we have a restaurant, but we also have physiotherapists, we have mental coaches. They all have office spaces, and well, so all the time people are coming in. And during every day, we have about 300-400 people walking around in the campus, and they do business together, and that accelerates a lot. So we facilitate, well, not only teams, but also students and startups.
Amazing, amazing. And Marie, if we could just come on to you, obviously, as you mentioned, you've been a bit of a stalwart of the industry since for quite some time now. I suppose what would be really useful is for you to paint a picture of how the kind of facility landscape has changed during your time in the industry.
So when I started out, there used to be like a couple of small IT cafes. That's kind of all we had, and we were all kind of underground in some basement somewhere. And there used to be like quite a lot of them, at least in Stockholm, where I started out. And then more and more they became fewer but bigger, like a couple of big IT cafes, like Inferno Line comes to mind in Stockholm. And then the big arenas kind of started. Like the LAN parties used to be big. There used to be a lot of small LAN parties and a lot of small esports tournaments for very small price items. But then DreamHack kind of built that, and they started out in Jönköping, and then they started touring the world. And then you see a lot of, you know, also CPL was a really early tournament organizer, a lot out in the US. So you see actually like bigger events are starting to happen. That, you know, they keep touring, but they keep happening, and those are happily still happening today. Now, though, there are a couple of more things happening online, like the online engagement is bigger than ever. Back in the days, the internet used to be a little bit poorer, so we actually had to fly teams over and have LAN parties. But nowadays, it's better at least. You still wouldn't have competitive top games, you know, across the internet. I would say, let's say if it's a major tournament, but you can get pretty far with online.
Excellent. And I suppose one other thing I want to get your thoughts on is kind of the social spaces, using these facilities as a social space for people to meet up. Can you elaborate any more on kind of how they are being used as a social place?
Yeah, so like back in the days, people would only know each other's nicknames. We didn't even know how you looked like. There was an early community, it was called Geek Boys, founded by BDS, and there was no photos, just nicknames. And then we go to LAN, and we're like, so there's a LAN party, and ninjas in pajamas are sitting somewhere. There are 5 computers in the row of sweaty 15-year-olds that are ninjas in pajamas. There's no like no red ribbons anywhere. You know, you just kind of walk up to someone. That's where we started, so to say. But then at DreamHack, and the more these things evolved, and the more it was not scary anymore to know people on the internet or actually have even your real name on the internet. The more people started, meeting up and knowing each other's faces. When the news sites started out as well, actually putting a lot of footage up from the LAN parties, then it all kind of opened up to, like putting yourself out there, putting yourself on Twitter, etc. And then more and more people started actually going to venues. Like in 2010, around that time, we started having a lot of bar crafts in Stockholm, for example. So actually people are going just for viewing parties. Instead of just sitting at home, maybe being in Ventrilo or Curse, as came before Discord, speaking, actually people like going to events together, like watching games together, especially if they're happening in another city, because that's something that esports do. We tour different cities of the world and keep having different tournaments on, but you can always go to your kind of local bar and hang out. And then first it used to be just IT cafes, and then the kind of sports venues came in and started hosting a couple of esports events. And then Meltdown Bar actually came, I'm not sure exactly which year, but maybe around 2011, I would guess. And they were hosting like an actual bar where there's like 15 computers where you can also hang out and play a game with your friends if you want to. So we're kind of, it's going from the little basement to being just part of an entertainment society, I would say.
Excellent, cool. So that was kind of painting the landscape, really, that part of it. And now we'll move on to the reason I know a lot of you are in the room, for the commercial viability questions. So actually, I want to interrogate that viability question initially. And Maria, I'm going to come back to you and just ask you the question. If this is a kind of digital-first industry, is there a risk in the future that this could become kind of a bit of a redundant space, the esports venues?
You mean the big venues?
The big venues, or whichever venues, really, I suppose.
No, I think it can all grow, but you have to kind of build it together, if that makes sense. Like, it's hard to just put up a big, like, I wouldn't say, it's not like build it and they would come. Don't just build a big venue and you'll fill it every day of the week, right? Even the venues that do everything, like the concert venues, they're struggling to fill every day of the week, right? So what you have to do, what I like calling is like grow it and they will come. So, you know, if you want to make a big venue in a city, you can. It will be hard, you can, and it will take time. And like what you look at, what I would say is like, okay, this city, is there a local esports team? Does the government give visas to esports athletes? Do they sponsor grassroots movement? Do they show on national TV or interview what is happening in this esports thing and showing that to the parents? You know, like, is there enough IT cafes where they can have night gigs? You know, is the internet good enough to sustain, like, what things exist in this city that kind of work together? Is there an IT university, for example? Is there a university league going on? And then you have to kind of interact with these things. So one thing, for example, when Dreamer came to Montreal, is we had the after party at Meltdown, which is a bar, right? And what Take TV used to do as well was organizing StarCraft tournaments. Like, well, they have the event tournaments happening in one place, but they're filming the viewer party. And the viewing party is getting into the broadcast. That's happening at another bar somewhere else. So what you have to do is kind of grow and build this thing. Like, if you're going to have a big tournament, maybe you can have the university league that you broadcast as a warm-up, for example. So you have to build that whole ecosystem, and you have to see what other partners are there to grow, because it is a little bit of a pyramid. A lot of people will play games online, sure. A couple of them will come to these IT cafes or you know, however big they are, bars, and then, you know, maybe as many over the course of a year, and then a bunch of them will come to a big venue, right? But you need to not exhaust your crowd, if that makes sense. You can't have a big thing happening every day of the week. You have to have a little bit of scarcity, make it a little bit more special, but also you need to also keep switching the game and make sure that you build, because you can't show the same thing every day. You know, compared to a music venue, you know, you wouldn't have a rock concert every day. You would have maybe once per week, and then you would make some pop the other day. So we have a saying in Swedish, it's omväxling förnöjer, and it means that variety, like there's a value in the variety. Thank you.
Amazing. And I suppose touching on what you just said there, somebody who knows very well about growing an esports venue as yourself, Matthijs, talk to us really about as much as you can about your kind of revenue model, I suppose. How are you kind of building that?
Yeah, well, the last 2 years, not so much revenue on events, of course. That was a little bit more difficult. But yeah, we created around the ecosystem a partnership model, like a lot of teams have before with Team Liquid and here Michelle, they have a partnership model around it, and we created it around our venue and ecosystem, because there's a lot of content created at our facility, so we have a lot of reach, and you can partner up with us, and yeah, it's like I have a background in sports sponsoring, sports strategy. And we adapted that model of sports sponsoring to esports. And for example, one of the biggest banks in the Netherlands is our main venue partner. So it's called Rabo Esports Stadium. It's like the Etihad Stadium, and it's quite simple if you think of it. But that's a lot of value for a partner. And that's quite sustainable. Only you have to deliver the content. So we need also content creators, and the advantage, I think, of having a venue or an ecosystem is that, for example, we can host big corporate events, and we add a gaming sauce on that. So for us, it's also esports teams. They come, and everything is directly in place for boot camps, and internet is the most important thing. Everything we paid so much money, but everything is under the ground and nobody sees it. And we have double fiberglass connections with 1 MPS, I heard. Yes, sir, it's 1 MPS. Yeah, I have to say it always to the teams. They like it. And this is very important. So the facility has to be perfect. And we believe that if you want to have a great event tomorrow, we build it that if you want tomorrow to come to our venue, you can broadcast a professional production. That's what we did. And this changes a lot for the production costs. So even more teams, but also producers come to our facility to show the match and the event. Yeah.
Hello. Oh, so Rhys, one thing just touching on there is the technology, and I know we discussed that in depth before. Do you want to elaborate any more on how important that is to these venues and how flexible that makes them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I agree with everyone here today that, you know, as we evolve within the industry, it needs to be incredibly well connected, both on the infrastructure technology, data, power, all those different things that are sort of a next level up in terms of traditional arena design. And it's touching on what you said before, looking to the future and the idea about flexibility in arena design that allows for new technology to be built into that venue. So, as things are upgraded on 6-month basis or 2-year basis, that they can be pulled out and new infrastructure being put in. So it's really about flexibility and adaptability of the venue. I think the other thing to note is that the arena market, particularly within esports, is really trying to attract, because of how well connected these venues are, there's lots of other crossovers with other industries. So media, film, television production, for instance, is a real good example of crossover. That, you know, some of the facilities that we're looking at the moment, so they're 2,000-3,000 seats, that they are perfect places for filming of major television production. So, you know, things like The Voice, for instance, that has a live crowd. The idea that the venue could be turned over quite quickly from an esports tournament to suddenly a film production.
We had a show called The Next E-Talent. It was aired in the Netherlands, where it's like The Voice concept, and the winner won a professional contract with Team Gullit. It's a FIFA team, and there was a whole show. It was our venue was rented for 6 weeks, and they aired it on Videoland. It's like the Netflix of the Netherlands, even a little bit better. But it was a very popular show, and it was the first entertainment show created for mainstream streaming, and it worked out pretty well. And well, they rented our venue for 6 weeks, and it was due to the connection, the technology, that they could have a good TV production. So it was very well rented in the lockdown, because that was the only thing what was allowed was TV productions. So we were happy to host them.
Excellent. One thing, obviously, the esports industry, I think, is doing is really taking learnings from other industries, be that entertainment, be that sport. We've obviously got a couple of people who work on sports projects, a former athlete as well. And Michelle worked at the best football club in London, which is obviously Arsenal. I hope there's no Spurs fans or Chelsea fans in the room. But Michelle, I was wondering if you could talk to us about that experience that you experienced from moving from Highbury over to the Emirates, and what was your learnings there, and how is that setting you up, I suppose, for your role in esports?
Yeah, just in case there are any Tottenham fans, sorry. Yes, obviously showing my age, because I was part of that whole move from Highbury Stadium to Emirates, but I think for us it was quite a slow approach into building yourself into that environment, because again, it's very community driven. We had to do a lot of listening to what our fans wanted. We called it Arsenalise. We didn't do that for quite a while, because we didn't know what the storytelling we wanted to do in that space, that our fans would actually enjoy it, and the areas that we were creating with them as well. So there's a kind of need not to rush to do everything all in one go. But the thing that we struggled the most with, which actually is in the reverse in this space, is how do you bring the live match day experience to across the world? And how do you make your fans around the world feel part of that stadium experience? Whereas here, we have the luxury of having fans all across the world, and now they are wanting to be part of the experience that you're creating from a physical perspective. So I think for us, and things that we're exploring at Guild, and I'm sure many of you already are, is how we bridge that gap and making sure that, whether that's through a metaverse or some kind of a VR experience, which allows them to actually experience our home, our venue that we're putting on from wherever they are in the world. And then also, again, it creates that aspiration. So, you know, they can experience a small part of it sitting in their bedroom, streaming, and they can see it online. But then how do they want to then engage in order to get to the actual real space? So we're lucky in this space that actually we have the beauty of being able to access those audiences first and then give them something which takes it to the next level up from a physical perspective. And just in terms of other learnings that we have, it's really creating a cultural destination. That's really, really important, because there's only a certain amount of time, as you said, you can only hold your big spike events so many times, but how do you make it so that people want to come and see what you're doing? You've got behind the scenes, so you give them elements of kind of what it is like to train like a pro or to create content in our production studios, etc. So how can you then bring them into your space and give them some kind of exclusivity? That's really, really important to think about how to engage on a kind of more regular basis outside of the big spike moments.
Amazing. Marie, just following up there, I know you're someone who's really looking at this like social connection. How do you think a company like Guild could potentially benefit and try and commercialize that element of these venues?
There we go, testing. All right. So I think there's two parts of it. One is, you know, like you first mentioned, that you want to bring that experience to the metaverse, to what's happening later. And one thing that I see sometimes, but not full on in different esports broadcasts for tournaments, is bringing in everyone who's not in the arena. You know, like sometimes there's a Twitch chat that says, hey, do you vote for team A or B? But you rarely see, like on the prediction desk, well, this is what this caster thinks, this is what the host thinks, this is what Twitch chat thinks. You know, and also like sports is a great example to look at. Like if you watch, for example, a hockey game, you'll see them actually having some fan camera, a wall of fan cameras reacting to a goal, for example. So they're really trying to feed back the viewer into the experience. And this is also something that I think we can take even further when it comes to in-game, in LAN, or you know, in event, into arenas. Because so I watch a lot of sports actually. I watch a lot of winter sports specifically. And when I go to a game, it's because I want to be there for my team. I want to support my team. I want to be the 6th player in the hockey team, the 12th player in, you know, the football stadium, you know, for my team, and cheer them on, to try to feel like I'm somehow helping them. And you usually, like what you see after a hockey game is that the players will actually go to their cheerlead supporter section, and they will thank them, and they will say, we really kind of felt you guys today, we felt your energy today. And so what I would wish would happen in arenas would be like, well, here's not only a jersey, but here you can buy the scarf to hang up, like in any football game. Here is your whiteboard that is branded with the team name beside it, that you can write a message to whatever player, hoping that the camera would do it, you know. Here's the host going down to the floor, interviewing people, like, who are you cheering for? What do you think will happen in the game, you know? What if we had a G2 Samurai mascot running around on the floor, finding cool things happening and cool people, fans there, and then the camera will pan in there and they'll do a funny dance or something like that, you know? Like, how can we interact more? Maybe we could have a raffle, you know, if you guess for the winning team, you have a chance to meet the players backstage, or maybe there is a meet and greet, or maybe you join for dinner. Like, I want more ways that's not just the one-way conversation, because when I go to an esports events today, it feels more like a concert with the one-way kind of information flowing, and less like it does in sports when it's like the two-way engagement. So let me be the sixth player, please.
I have got maybe a good example. 2 weeks ago at an event at our facility, we had a robot, and it was driven by children who are sick in the hospital. And it's a camera in the robot, and she drove around in the facility, and she could talk to the players, talk to the other people, and they interacted. There was a camera, and it was a new invention by a Dutch company, and we used it in an event, and it was, the players drove crazy, everybody, and the children in the hospital, they were part of the event. It was very nice. So there are a lot of developments going around, and well, now they wanted to use in football as well. But we started it at our venue, and next week it will start at a professional football match, and the robot can drive in the dressing room. So it's very nice. Yeah.
Excellent. And then coming back to you, Michelle, I think one of the other questions is that it has kind of been cited that Guild could potentially look to create their own space at some point. I suppose, what are you looking at there, and how much is the kind of Guild Academy, which is quite a unique concept, tying into that? Are there any kind of partnerships you're exploring there to help commercialise that at all?
Yeah, 100%. So we are looking to build our roots in East London, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of share that with everybody in the coming months. Being a listed company is very difficult. You're not allowed to talk about anything, but it's for us, again, it's making sure that we can then start to take our business to the next level. We can house our content output and start to really increase what we're doing across of our facility, train our trainers and players in the right way, ensure that our corporate staff are all in the same space, and we're actually building something together. The commercialization of it, there's a lot of interest in terms of, like, we're looking at it as a center of excellence, so brands that want to be associated with that, but also then in terms of where we are, where we will be in London, it being so vibrant and so diverse, and also being able to celebrate local communities in and around our facility. We neighbour onto like 4 different London boroughs that need a lot of support in terms of extending esports courses to underprivileged kids, whether that's kind of people having experiences that they would not be able to access usually through Guild, but with our commercial partners. So that's really, really powerful, whether that comes from a scholarship perspective with our academy, and our partners being able to tell that story of how they're really helping the development and putting kids on a kind of pathway to pros through our facility, and then through our academy. So our academy, it will be our first flagship of a physical space. And that really will be invitational only from kids that are scouted through our digital learning platform that we have. So again, when they're coming into our environment and brands want to kind of get involved there, we're also quite protective of what brands are allowed to do there, because we don't want to over-commercialize that space, and it has a lot of interest from brands wanting to partner with it. It's grassroots, and actually I think everybody has seen that this is what we need to provide for the landscape. But we are very protective in terms of the criteria that brands must meet in order to be able to access that space, and that really is, how can you value add? So the experience that a student have coming through our academy, and as they go through, what is it that they can value add to their experience, whether it's financial acumen, life skills, for outside of kind of the esports and content environment that we already have them in. So as I said, we are quite protective in terms of how we commercialize that, and we know that when we get the right brand there, it's going to have kind of met the standards that we're setting for that, because this is our audience and we have to do right by them. We are responsible for them, and we want to make sure that they're not exploited.
Amazing. And I suppose staying a little bit with the theme of sponsorship partnerships, Rhys, I kind of see you as this overseeing master of the esports venue landscape with your role. I suppose, like, what kind of brands are really looking to engage in that space in the esports venue specifically? Are they endemic? Are they non-endemic? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, as we... Hello? Yeah, go on. As I was explaining before, the marketplace is broad, and as more people start to come online and find the benefits of esports for their brand, we're seeing it from all sorts, from education partners, so people like Pearson, for instance, they're creating bespoke esports courses, being involved in these sort of facilities, all the way through to brands that you would associate with esports, whether they're computer manufacturers or whatnot. But I think the pressures, not the pressures, the opportunities I think that we have within creating new spaces is that it's not just the arena, it's not just the training centre, it's not just, there's multitude of different spaces and overlays that are required now within the ecosystem of an esports physical venue that facilitates different types of events, whether that is a League of Legends tournament, whether that is a Dota 2 tournament, whether that is a FIFA tournament. Each one of those brings their own tribes with their own requirements. So it's really about flexibility of the venue, and that goes to brands and partnerships as well. So the people that are associated with FIFA aren't necessarily the same people that are associated with League of Legends. So their requirements around activations within the venue, all the way through to the media requirements for those type of brands and partnerships are diverse, and I think we need to build that in as we go, as the industry starts to grow and facilities start to expand and become more involved.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm told we have 2 minutes left, is it? No? Done?
20.
We're done? 20? Done. Oh, okay. I was going to say who has the best question in the room, and then we would fit in one question.
I think it's my session that comes on next, so we can eat into that if you like. Yeah.
Who has the best question in the room? Is there one? No? We good? Any closing remarks from you guys? That what would your advice be? I suppose to the audience if they were looking at engaging in the esports venue landscape.
I think from our clients, it's all about experience, and I think to summarise on everything that everyone said today, it's all about creating that personal experience for fans, for players, for media broadcast partners. It's about trying to give someone, as you said, everyone's engaged from all around the world, but how do you create that personable experience in venue? And I think whether that's a 20-person venue or a 5,000-person venue, it's always the same. And I think taking learnings from traditional sports, applying them to esports, but also knowing that there's very particular requirements around esports now that people are, as I said before, are demanding as part of a tournament or a facility such as these.
Hello. I think it's very important what you said about the ecosystem, and actually none of these venues or these environments we're creating are mutually exclusive. They all work together and they all have very, very different needs, and actually it's very important that we provide the kind of different spaces that the different audiences are requiring. So whether it's a big arena versus a content facility, whether it's a smaller event, they all need to be working together in order to continue to evolve this space. So it's kind of not like just looking at the one typical event that you might see normally in traditional sports, which will be a mass participation audience and a kind of field in the centre. These all exist together, and it's very important that we support this ecosystem.
And one thing to add to this also is that remember that every different esport game is its own sports, more or less. So while you might have a really strong Counter-Strike Go community, you might not have a StarCraft community, you might not have a big Dota community, and you have to build them from the ground up. You can't just put on the big stadium. You have to be like, how can we get the grassroots involved? How can we get the universities involved? How can we start viewing parts? How can we start getting these to actual physical spaces, like mid-sized arenas, for example? And then eventually, when there's enough of that, that's when you can actually go to the big arena with them.
Yeah, I finalized, and we always say that we are like Switzerland, so we work with everybody. So I think it's good to remember, if you want to grow, you have to do it together, and think of Switzerland.
Cool. I'm going to wrap it up there before I get an absolute grilling from the organisers. Sorry for running over slightly, Rhys, and sorry for opening up your session. I hope everyone's enjoyed it. Thank you again to all the panellists. Thank you to ESI for setting up this panel in particular. And yeah, have a great evening. Hopefully I'll catch a few of you down in the bar for a couple afterwards. All right.